The rain was falling softly over the countryside, silver sheets washing the earth, blurring the lines of the fields and rooftops. It was the kind of rain that quiets the world, leaving only the scent of fresh soil and the rhythm of drops against the roof. Inside a modest wooden house, warmth lingered. Diep sat with little Nhi, the 3-year-old who had become her shadow, her laughter, her joy. Together they spent the morning in gentle rhythms, feeding chickens, plucking vegetables from the garden, cooking rice, sharing slices of fruit. Outside, the storm made the world feel distant. But inside, there was warmth, there was life. James had promised Diep over the phone that he would not return for several more days. He spoke of paperwork, of business, of endless duties. She believed him, though her heart sagged with the weight of waiting. What she did not know was that he had already landed at Neubai airport that very morning. He had come home not to delay, but to surprise. He wanted to see her eyes when he walked through the door, to feel her shock, her joy. Maybe, just maybe, to glimpse the life he had always dreamed of. A surprise at the door. On his way from the airport, James stopped. First at a small shop, where he carefully picked out clothes for a little girl. A yellow dress, a white shirt with tiny flowers, and a soft hat that seemed both practical and charming. He imagined Nyi's delighted face, her small hands tugging eagerly at the fabric. At a flower stall, he chose a bouquet of fresh blooms, fragrant, vivid, alive. He carried them with a heart that beat faster than it had in years. When James finally stepped into the small house, drenched from the rain yet smiling, arms full of gifts, Diep froze in astonishment. Only hours before, he had sworn he would be away for days. Now, here he was. "I couldn't stay away," he said, his voice soft. Nyi's eyes widened as James knelt down, holding out the clothes. "For you," he whispered. The child squealed, clutching the yellow dress to her chest as if it were treasure. That evening, as they sat together at the table, sharing rice and vegetables, James felt something shift. The simple meal tasted better than any banquet he had ever known. The laughter of Diep and the bright giggles of Nhi filled the house like music. He had sat in countless boardrooms, signed contracts worth millions, survived betrayals, but nothing compared to this fragile peace, this feeling of home. The word that changed everything. It happened almost without warning. Nhi, her face glowing with innocence, turned to him. In her small, clear voice she said a single word, "Dad." The sound struck him like lightning. Yet it did not wound. Instead, it brought a wave of warmth so powerful his eyes burned with tears. For a moment he could not breathe, could not speak. He simply reached out, lifting her into his arms, holding her as though he would never let her go. Diep sat quietly, lips curved into a tender smile. In that single instant she saw the truth. James had never been searching for redemption, or even for success. What he longed for, what he had always longed for, was family. For James, it was the most beautiful moment of his life. He had been called many things: CEO, boss, leader, but never this. To hear that word from NHI was to discover a part of himself he never knew was missing. "Welcome home, James," Diep whispered, and as the rain eased into silence outside, James knew, no matter what storms waited in the world beyond, he had found his anchor. He was finally home. Morning light. The next morning, the rain was gone. Birdsong replaced the storm, the fields glittered with dew, and the air carried a freshness that made everything feel new. James opened his eyes slowly, expecting the sterile silence of another hotel suite. Instead, he heard the clatter of dishes, the giggles of NHI in the kitchen. When he stepped out, he found Diep kneeling by the stove, her hair loose, her movements graceful. Morning light painted her face in gold. Beside her, NHI sat proudly on a stool, stirring an empty pot with a spoon, still wearing the yellow dress he had bought. James leaned against the doorway, watching. The scene was ordinary, but to him it was more precious than all the glass towers he had ever owned. "Good morning," he said softly. NHI ran to him, feet tapping the wooden floor. "Hi Dad, carry me." The word struck him again, but this time he did not hesitate. He lifted her high, twirling until her laughter rang through the house like bells. Diep watched them, her heart torn between joy and fear. She knew James carried the weight of a dangerous world outside these walls. Happiness, she feared, could be fragile. The shadow of reality. They ate together, rice porridge, pickled vegetables, fresh tea. James fed NHI patiently, surprised at his own tenderness. Every smile she gave him, every clumsy word she spoke, pulled him deeper into a bond he had never imagined. But after breakfast, reality came knocking. His phone buzzed with urgency. James's face darkened as he read. "What is it?" Diep asked. "It's John," James said, setting the phone down, jaw tight. "He's already speaking with investors. If I don't go back soon, everything I built might collapse." The air grew heavier. Diep placed her hand gently over his. "James, you can rebuild a company. But you cannot rebuild a family once it is lost. Don't let the shadows outside steal what you found here." Her words pierced him. He knew she was right. Yet he also knew John would not stop. And now, with Diep and NHI in his life, He had more to lose than ever before. James kissed Nye's forehead, then looked at Diep, his voice steady though thick with emotion. Whatever happens, I promise you this. I will fight not just for my company, but for us. For this family. Her smile was brave, though worry shimmered beneath. Then we fight together, she said quietly. Outside, sunlight stretched across the fields. But in the city, the storm was already gathering. Days of peace, nights of fear. In the quiet countryside, James found a rhythm he had never known. Helping Diep water the garden. Watching Nhi chase chickens through muddy paths. Sitting at night under the glow of a lamp, Diep mending clothes while he told stories of faraway places. But even in those tender moments, he could feel the storm pressing closer. His phone filled with reports from his assistant, investors leaving, rumors spreading, John weaving lies. One evening, after Nhi had fallen asleep, James and Diep sat together on the porch. The moon cast silver light across the wet fields. I know your world is full of enemies, she whispered. But you don't have to face them alone anymore. You have me now. James tightened his arm around her. I'm not afraid of losing the company, he admitted. I'm afraid of losing you. John knows about us. If he ever tries to hurt you, his voice broke. Diep turned to him, her gaze steady. Then protect us. Not with fear, but with love. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. And in that moment, James realized something. Diep was not fragile. She was stronger than anyone he had ever met. She had endured storms, hardship, loneliness, and her heart was still pure. She was his anchor. A parting promise. The next morning, James packed a small bag. Before leaving, he knelt in front of Nhi, who clung tightly to his hand. Dad, don't go, she whispered, tears filling her eyes. James's throat tightened. He lifted her close. I promise I'll come back. And when I do, we'll never be apart again. Diep stood nearby, her face calm though her heart trembled. When James kissed her hand, her smile was brave, but her eyes shimmered with unspoken fear. As his car disappeared down the road, she whispered softly to the rain-soaked fields, "Come back to us, James." Come back safe. Far away, in the city's shadows, John was already waiting. He had seen James's weakness. It was no longer pride, or money, or power. It was love, and he would use that to strike. For James, the battle was no longer about saving a company. It was about protecting the two souls who had finally given him a reason to call someplace home.